This is a 1932 Morris Minor SV fabric saloon. You might be wondering how I got into this mess in the first place. Good question. One day, out of the blue, my friend sent me this ad on Facebook Marketplace. That might have been the start of either my worst mistake or one of the best adventures I set out on. Time to hitch up and hit the road. The first task was to load the Morris onto a trailer. Unfortunately, since the seller had to leave the yard in an hour and a half, I had to quickly go back home to pick up my utility trailer for taking out rubbish to the recycling center. A bit ironic, I'd say, but hey, that's what we're all about here. One man's trash is another man's treasure. Unfortunately, the trailer wasn't ideal, but I knew that it could easily carry the weight of this vintage car. Thankfully, with just a few centimeters to spare on either side, the Morris slipped in like a glove. And now let's head down to garage that my good friend Simon works in. Let me also use this moment to introduce myself and the channel. My name is Robert and I'm an IT engineer by day and a tinkerer by night. I live in Scotland, so get used to seeing plenty of rain and wind on this channel, alongside weird license plates, and seeing the steering wheel on the wrong side of the car. I've had a passion for classic and vintage cars ever since I can remember. Since the opportunity came up to purchase this 92-year-old Morris Minor, I thought that I might as well document the adventure of restoring this piece of history, and hopefully many more in the future. I am not a master mechanic, nor an upholsterer, or an expert in body panel repair. What do I have, however, is a very wide range of transferable skills from the various jobs and projects that I have done over the years, as well as quite possibly too much passion. What I do not currently know, I will learn. I also have a good network of friends that I can rely on, including two pretty good mechanics who love wasting their evenings with me, working on old junk. It is worthwhile noting that this episode was filmed back in September, but I've not had enough time to finish editing the video. I am also not an expert movie producer, so please do stay with me as I work towards improving the audio and video quality. Enough said. Buckle up, hit like, subscribe, and enjoy this episode. That's us arriving at Simon's garage. A massive shout out to him and Beehive Auto in Tranent for helping me with the mechanical side of the restoration. In this episode, we will try to assess the state of the car and try to form a plan of action on how this beauty will be brought back to its former glory. In case you're wondering what is happening here, since we loaded the car using a front loader, we didn't realize that the rear of the trailer is too narrow for the car to roll off of. This meant that my good friend Simon had to cut off the sides that hold the trailer ramp for the time being. You live and learn. And here's some glorious slow-mo footage of the sparks flying through the air. As you can see, there's a lot of damage to the car through years of neglect and exposure to the elements. We have moss growing on the sides. The fabric roof is all gone now, without a trace it was ever there. The fabric sunroof has fallen in, since the wooden frame holding it in place has rotted away. The upholstery has to be completely replaced, as well as many more pieces that will need our attention. But this is a passion project, and we will bring this car back to its former glory. It's time to get this baby car of the trailer. As the Morris Minor only weighed 700 kilograms when it rolled of the assembly line, or 1,543 pounds for our imperial friends, it was quite easy to roll off of the trailer. As a lot of the wood is now missing, I'd say that it has lost a fair few kilograms over the years. Look at the happiness on Simon's face when he found the original mirror. The first job was to take the doors of the car. Since the wooden frame was rotten and falling apart, the screws holding the hinges in place had nothing left to hold onto. Therefore, the doors wouldn't open and close as they should. Taking the doors off also allows us to have better access to the car and lets us take care of them separate. As a lot of the car's weight is within the doors, it also makes the car far lighter and easier to maneuver around the garage. Since car doors are one of the most interacted with parts of any car, it'll be good to get them restored as closely to original as possible, and having them separate from the car makes the job far easier. We will take the doors into a separate work area to work on later, hopefully making a dedicated video about them. What Simon is doing here is loosening up all of the rusted components using a homemade elixir. It was made using 4 parts paint thinner and 1 part automatic transmission fluid. However, it's best to use acetone instead of paint thinners. Nevertheless, it worked wonders. Having a look at the interior, it definitely needs a lot of work due to the exposure to the elements. The roof assembly is almost completely gone. The dashboard, however, is still in a very good condition despite the age and neglect. First order of business is to get this old boy cleaned up, as everything has fallen into the inside of the car. Since it's a complete mess inside, we aren't able to do anything with all of the trash inside, so let's get cleaning. Gloves are a must-have here, as we have no idea what has been in here and what biohazards await us, including mold. And here's Simon being happy again after finding the original crank handle. While we will try to preserve as many of the components as possible in order to ensure that we can bring the Morris back to its original state, some pieces are simply too far gone and there's mold growing on them, so we have to get rid of any rotten wood and material which is falling apart in our hands. Don't worry though, we will keep any larger and worthwhile part on the side to help us in making templates for new parts. There's no point, however, in keeping rotten wood, so off it goes. One of our first finds inside are the original rails, which used to hold the vinyl top on. As a side note, I was quite surprised to learn that both the interior and the roof were made of vinyl and not real leather. But every day is a school day with classic cars. I cannot begin to tell you how many countless hours I spent online, scouring the internet for information about the pre-war miner. Go ahead and get those miner jokes out of your system. Anyways, this miner is definitely not a miner anymore. It turned 18 on the 4th of December 1949, so at this point it definitely qualifies for senior discounts considering that it's 92 years old. What Simon found here is an old note that someone left to remind themselves that this 3-speed gearbox is quite different to the ones we are used to in modern cars. The first gear is actually where most of us will find the second gear in our cars, and where our cars have the first gear, this Morris has the reverse. As a fun fact for you, since this car was made before synchros were introduced in gearboxes, in order to change gear, you have to use the double clutch technique. It involves shifting gears by first shifting into neutral, releasing the clutch, revving the engine to match the speed of the transmission, and then engaging the clutch to shift into the desired gear. This method helps synchronize the speeds of the transmission and the engine, facilitating smoother gear changes. One of the first mechanical jobs for Simon is to check the carburetor to make sure that it's clean and working fine. Unfortunately in our case, as the lubricating oil hasn't been added in years, the piston has seized up, and so this will need to be addressed. Thankfully, I have managed to find a specialist in England who deals with SU carburetors and is able to restore them to near perfect condition, ensuring a smooth and reliable operation. For those who don't know what a carburetor is a device that blends air with a fine spray of liquid fuel to create a combustible mixture for the internal combustion engine. It regulates the ratio of air and fuel entering the engine, allowing for efficient combustion and engine performance, particularly in older cars. Modern vehicles often use fuel injection systems, replacing the traditional carburetor. And have a look at the goldmine of original tools that we found under the passenger seat. We've got a hand pump which still works, a pipe wrench and the crank handle to get the car started manually. They're all rusty and nasty, but we'll get these restored. Might just make it into a short YouTube video just for you. As the engine will need a lot of work since it hasn't run in over 10 years if not more, we decided to take off the two-sided bonnet of the car, or hood for our American friends, alongside the radiator. This provides us with a 270-degree access to the engine bay. This is something which definitely isn't possible in modern cars, and Simon fell in love with the simple engineering on this car. It's a welcome break for him from the daily grind in the garage. While not the most urgent task, I also decided to give the whole car a quick clean with an old rag, as I couldn't wait to see the remaining original paint shine and show off the beautiful shape of the vintage Morris. Just a couple of screws, and the radiator came off without a fight. Despite the age, a lot of the nuts and bolts are in a far better shape than a lot of 5 to 10-year-old cars I've seen. As a side note, this radiator hasn't had any liquid in it for a very long time, so you haven't missed anything. If anything, we will need to find a way to clean the inside to get rid of any possible rust. And here's the engine in all of its simple glory. Producing just 8 horsepower, it's definitely not a monster. However, it's reliable, as they produced over 47,231 of the side valve version, alongside 39,087 of the overhead cam variant. This engine continued to be produced for decades after this car came out. When Simon tried to feel for engine compression while turning the crank handle, he could feel that the engine was still tight. However, despite it being in neutral, it still couldn't be turned all the way around. This indicated that there is some sort of an issue inside the engine block. In order to find out exactly what was causing it, we had to remove the cylinder head. However, before we could get to that step, the dynamo had to be removed. For those who don't know, a dynamo in a classic car is an electrical generator that produces direct current, DC, to charge the car's battery and power electrical components. It converts mechanical energy from the engine's rotation into electrical energy, sustaining the vehicle's electrical system. Classic cars typically used dynamos before alternators became more common. The dynamo plays a crucial role in maintaining the battery's charge and powering lights and other electrical functions in the car. Alternators replaced dynamos in cars due to their superior efficiency, compact design, and better performance at low engine speeds. Alternators offer higher electrical output, are more lightweight, and provide improved voltage regulation, ensuring a steady charge to the battery and compatibility with modern electronic systems. While most of the nuts and bolts on the car came off easily, the ones holding the engine head were quite difficult to get loose. But that's to be expected due to their age. You'll see us struggle a little with these. Here's a short clip of just how difficult these nuts are to remove. As we struggle with these bolts, let me give you a brief history about this Morris Minor, as most people think of the post-World War II model when they think of a Morris Minor. But this was original that started it all. The pre-war Morris Minor, a quintessential British car, holds a special place in automotive history. Introduced in 1928 by Morris Motors, it emerged during a period of growing demand for smaller and more affordable automobiles. The early Morris Minor models, affectionately known as the bullnose Minors due to their distinctive radiator shape, were powered by a modest 847cc side valve engine. This was a time when many families were looking to own their first car, and the Morris Minor offered an accessible entry point to automobile ownership. The bullnose Morris Minors quickly gained popularity for their charming design and practicality. They became a common sight on the roads of the United Kingdom, providing reliable and economical transportation to countless families and individuals. In 1934, the Morris Minor underwent a significant transformation. This marked the introduction of the Morris Minor II, a redesign that included a more streamlined appearance and, notably, an overhead valve engine. The new engine design represented an important step forward in terms of performance and efficiency. The Morris Minor II continued to capture the hearts of motorists, solidifying its reputation as a dependable and affordable choice. However, the advent of World War II in 1939 brought a halt to the production of the Morris Minor, as the automotive industry redirected its efforts toward wartime production. During the war, the British automotive landscape changed dramatically, with factories converted for the manufacturing of military vehicles and equipment. After the war, the Morris Minor re-emerged and underwent further development. The lessons learned from pre-war and wartime experiences contributed to the creation of the iconic post-war Morris Minor series. which would go on to become one of the most beloved and enduring British cars of all time. The pre-war Morris Minor thus marked the beginning of a lineage that would define an era of British motoring and continue to evoke nostalgia for generations of car enthusiasts. As you can see, the engine head was still quite tight after we took the bolts off. However, it came off without a problem with a little perseverance on Simon's side. While the view isn't perfect as we couldn't mount the camera lower, you can see just how dirty the engine is inside. What we discovered is that two of the valves on the second piston were stuck and wouldn't move when the engine is rotated. To try to loosen these up, Simon initially tried using his magical DIY formula. Here's a close-up of the stuck valves. Can you see them being stuck in one position while the rest of the valves are moving up and down? That's definitely not good. We'll try to get these moving just now with a little perseverance. Simon quickly cleaned up all of the loose dirt and grime with compressed air, before slowly tapping some sense into these valves. While the mechanism to move these up and down worked fine, they were stuck by the neck in the intake and exhaust airway. At least I think that's what it's called. You know, I'm not a mechanic by trade. Simon also attempted some persuasion from underneath, since this engine has a handy valve cover on the side. And a little more persuasion. Simon did a quick cleanup as well with a soft wire brush to get rid of the buildup of gunk over the years, then blew it all off with compressed air. And also a little classic WD-40 to help out. You can see the metal see the light of day again. Watch as all of the dirt hits the camera lens. There was a lot of it. And another quick turn of a flathead screwdriver, since the valves had a handy slot in the top. This loosened them up almost completely. Simon also did a quick cleanup on the head since it wasn't very clean either. As we come to the end of the video, you might be disappointed that you didn't see the car start up. I know I was. Unfortunately, during the cleanup, we discovered that the old 6-volt battery was completely gone, as well as several other electrical issues. But don't worry, you'll see it start in the next video, at least for a few seconds, since the carburetor still needs a rebuild. However, to make up for your disappointment, here's a quick video of the headlights come on, or as my other friend called it, candles. And to end of a fun note, here's the horn with a drained battery. It sounds better in the next video. Thank you for watching our first episode on the restoration of the 1932 Morris Minor SV. We hope that you enjoyed this episode. Please like and subscribe to follow our progress, and to see this timeless beauty back on the road. New episode coming soon.